We've concluded our test with BMW's K 1600 GTL Exclusive, the most luxurious high-end touring bike the company makes. And I gotta say, I'm smitten. We didn't go easy on this bike. I've spent 24 hours solid straight on this bike, torture test, not to mention the 16 hours one other trip and the other 12 hours another trip. So we have put this bike through the ringer. The test is awesome. I'm here on the BMW 2014 GLX Exclusive model. Basically, this is the GLX, and they throw virtually, but not all, accessories at this model. Starts at a whopping $30,000. And there's some accessories you can add to it from there. Basically, it's a fully loaded GLX. Special paint, and it's actually quite beautiful. It's even more beautiful than the photos. Very attractive bike, and all day today it's been getting kudos from men and women alike saying that's pretty. So there you go. GLX came out about 2 years ago as the press introduction, and big thing is BMW made a 6-cylinder engine for this bike. They call it a 1600, but it's actually 1649 cc's. Bike produces 160 horsepower, 6-speed transmission, 129 pounds of torque, foot-pounds, and it delivers 70% of that at 1500 RPM or below. Basically, it doesn't run like a torque monger. It runs like a 1600cc sport bike. Revs quick, goes quick if you're in the right power band, or you can short shift it 3 gears below where you should be, or you can downshift it from 6th to 2nd and go. I'll tell you up front, the bike is literally remarkable. I like the GL much better at the press introduction, because when you added the top bag to this bike, I could hear shaft noise, and it's something you fight on every touring bike, but I just didn't like it. But that noise I'm not hearing anything back there I don't like. The bike simply rocks, and the reason it does that, in addition to the quick revving 160 horsepower 6, is the suspension and the handling, and I'll get to that later. I mean, you can tell it's a real oinker just watching me right now, right? So let's go over some of the features, and then we'll get to performance.
bike's equipped with central locking bags, which is actually really nice. Touch of a button right there, or your key fob, because there is no key. It's all electronic like an automobile. And you can lock all bags with the touch of a button and walk away. I'm getting to really like that. At first I didn't really care. Now I really like it. It's got ground lighting. You walk away from the bike, it's got like an LED underneath the engine that comes on when you turn the bike off. Stays on not as long as I'd like, but it's probably programmable somewhere that I can't find. Now the sound is awesome coming from a 6. It's sport bike-like with a lot of torque. Now the bike is shaft drive, which BMW's been doing for so long. And with BMW's unique suspension, well, that leads to the handling. Now the brakes on this thing, they're sport bike spec all the way, and they work wonderfully. One finger all the time, no need to do anything else. They're that wonderful. 4-piston calipers in the front, 2-piston caliper in the back. The brakes are linked. That linking works exceptionally well. Back brake. Anti-lock's kicking in. Very powerful, easy to control. Very nice to have such a power coming from the back brake if you don't want to be touching the front brake, which a lot of times you don't. So the brakes are simply, for this bike, perfect. They're that good, that enjoyable, that controllable. Of course, the bike is equipped with BMW's anti-lock, which they have refined and refined and refined to a point it is just exceptional as well. Now with BMW's suspension, you know, on their unique fork, what you don't get when you brake is dive. Hit the brakes hard, it doesn't dive. And it's also very controllable with the brake on hard. You can trail the brake all the way around a corner, feather it with one finger. It is, dare I say, perfect. It's that good. So if you combine the brakes with the handling, and I failed to mention, the handling is effortless. It's one hand all day long. You can ride 2 up, you can steer with one hand. It's that light, it's that precise. I can also trail the brake like I'm doing now with no ill effects, no diving. It's brilliant. There's something else that's pretty brilliant on this bike as well, and that's the suspension itself. Not only does it simply work wonderfully for a great ride, but you have so many options, and I haven't found any of them that aren't spot on. So there's a couple ways you set the suspension. One of them, and I'll get into that later up here, but one of them is the ride quality. There's comfort on the softer side. I think it's regular. It's called normal. That's actually up right now. You got normal in the middle, and you have sport on top of that, and they're just exactly what you think they would be. Normal gives you a really cush ride, but if you're like riding up into the mountains, no big deal. It still handles extremely well. Put it on normal, it's a little bit sharper. Still a good ride. Go to sport, which I'm actually on, and it stiffens up, it sharpens up, and the ride is what you would want for what I'm doing and beyond. And the settings are just spot on. Now the other thing you adjust on the suspension, the push of a button, is one up rider with luggage, 2 up rider. And you change those settings, you have to be stopped I believe the bike has to be running, but you have to be stopped. And those settings I've also found are absolutely perfect. I put test rider Chris on this bike 2 up, went out and found his local roads that he knows to be the worst roads around, went through it on this, came back and said it's phenomenal. It's better than my Audi automobile. So high praise indeed. You never think about the ride on this bike because it's never bad. It's always controlled and it's always comfortable. It's always doing what it's supposed to do, and that's when you don't think about something on a motorcycle. And that's where the suspension lies on this bike. Now we've got so many features on this bike and so many knobs and dials and readouts, it can be a bit overwhelming. In fact, it should be a crime to give this bike to somebody without the manual. But I think I've got everything down now, and it's taken a while. Let me get through this section here first. Show you that suspension height. It's just not a concern. So what you'll be using a lot on this bike is your main controller here, your 2 buttons here. Incidentally, I'll start the cruise control, which is right here. The cruise control is perfect. It's simplistic as can be. That locks it shut, that opens it. Set it, push forward, it's set. Go faster, push the button. Faster, push the button. Slower, push the button. Disengage, clutch, brake, brake. And one more that's very important, and that is your throttle. You don't want to take your hands off. Push the throttle forward, and you've got it canceled. To resume, pull it back. That's it. One button, does everything. Does it perfect, picks up quick, keeps speed well. It's just exactly the way a cruise control should be on a motorcycle. Hazard lights are right here. Thankfully we can get to them quick in the night because nothing on the bars light up. At night, find the cruise control. Right below it you'll find the emergency flashers. This is the button you'll use most with this controller here. This controls the mode of the display down here in a color TFT display. Shows a lot of stuff, and you can customize it a zillion different ways. So the menu button here, if we just select it and go through menus, that's for the GPS. That is for your hand warmers there. You can see the bar graph, and these are color coded. After a while you'll get used to the colors. Next mode, and they're right next to each other, is the electric seat. We'll turn that back off. After that, we go into audio setup, and there's also audio controls on the side here. Here's our radio controls. Unfortunately, you have to be on basically the audio display to do volume, and then the whole display changes. I can't play any audio, or my video will get flagged on YouTube, even if it's background for a couple seconds, because I've already had it up. So we won't do that. Here's things you set. You can set the temperature to be on this readout here, 70.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Tire pressure, it's nice, you don't have to do anything. 3840, changes ever so slightly with conditions. Anyways, lots of things. Here's a nice one. You ever wonder what the date is? This, you can bring up the date. I actually like that. Stopwatch, the temperature, average speed, consumption 1, consumption 2, good stuff. Now you've got your normal trip 1, trip 2, with a different color. Here's your suspension again, sport, normal, comfort, and back to the GPS. Now we've got up here is we've got a large gear position indicator, and what I didn't see for a while, temperature gauge is this bar graph here on the left, fuel gauge is on the right. it's very nice once you get used to it. The gauges, by the way, are absolutely beautiful in the day, and maybe even more so at night. They're a little bit easier to read in the daytime, because you got your analog tach, speedometer. Now, we also have right here your mode for your engine power delivery. Right now we're dynamic. You want to be a sport rider? Keep it in dynamic. That's the greatest performance, quickest response. Now if you hit this, dynamic, hit it again, goes to rain. I want rain mode on this bike. If I'm in the rain, I want it, and it does exactly what you think. It just takes all the power out of it. It doesn't hit hard. It's not going to spin the wheel up. And then the other one you have is road. Road just softens the power everywhere. If you're not used to this kind of power, hey, put it on a road, leave it there until you're extremely used to the bike. It's a wonderful thing. It just smooths everything out. It doesn't hit as hard, it doesn't hit as quick. It's very nice. Nothing wrong with it. Now, to set this, you can actually do it when you are moving. All you have to do, always pulling the clutch, you have to let go of the throttle to 0, and it should switch, because now I'm in road, I think. And let's go back to dynamic. Should be back in dynamic. Still says dynamic, so I'm there. So it's really nice. You can do it. Hey, it starts raining, go to rain mode. You can do it while you're moving, which is awesome. Now this other button you're going to use all the time, this is the electronically controlled windshield. Let's put it down for that view. Okay, now I'll put it up. And now we'll go all the way up. The movement of the thing is just really nice. It's quick, it's smooth, it's very nice movement, and I use it a lot. Fortunately, one of the reasons I use it a lot is that, you know, this had to be designed in a wind tunnel and all that, and that's straight on air unless they have a, you know, really great wind tunnel that can give them side winds like you always get on the coast. But anything from the side gets around this fairing, so it'll go from quiet to not quiet to loud, which also affects the great stereo and how you can or can't hear it. So doing a lot of adjusting with the windshield all the time. When I was on the back seat of this, the windshield all the way up cut the wind for me as a passenger. So we'll find the happy medium there. But it's just really nice to have. Now, one of the biggest problems I have with the bike is the windshield. It looks great, it moves great. Now the good part is somebody, including BMW or aftermarket, can make a new windshield for this bike and improve the flow for the side coverage, because it really can be loud behind a full fairing, which doesn't make any sense. Now the mirrors are awesome. You expect them to be larger, and it's like, well, they are crystal clear. They hold their adjustment. They're not oversized, but they're really, really good. I like them a great deal. And also, they move. And they go right back exactly where they were every time I've done that. So we have up here, we have the GPS, which is a great unit. I believe it's a Garmin. I haven't taken it out yet to look, but when you turn the bike off, it's removable GPS, and it comes out of the top. So when you park the bike, the windshield comes down like this, and it covers the place you take the GPS out, so it kind of like locks it in place. This bike, by the way, has no key, all electronic. Put the key fob in your pocket. Senses it when you're about up to 2 meters away. You can set an alarm, unlock or lock the saddlebags with the key fob, or you can do it from here. Here's your start and stop switch. Now the key fob amazingly unlocks the fuel cap. You come up to a gas station, no key, just lift this, and it's a very high quality piece fuel cap there, and it works well. Now the stereo system, well, if you just play it in your garage, it's an awesome stereo. Love the features. Now, because of the fairing letting side winds and so forth, and sometimes you can hear it, sometimes you can't. And for the Exclusive, I really can't believe they didn't put rear speakers in this thing, because what that does, it allows you to use less volume, surround yourself more with the sound. It gets the sound of the rider a lot better than two speakers, and I'm kind of blown away they didn't do that. But anyways, it's a very good stereo. It just doesn't always get the sound to you. Now what's cool is this bike has satellite Sirius radio, and I'm hooked. You know, you're on the coast, there's no cell coverage, there's no radio coverage. There is satellite radio anywhere you want it. Learned how to program it today. 12 presets, I think, which is a lot, which is great. Keeps you from using your hands. FM stereo, and we have more to boot. On the panel down here by my right knee, there is a auxiliary jack. There is a USB cable for like a USB memory stick, or you can plug in your iPhone or your iPod, whatever it is. You can plug it right in there and play it straight through the stereo. You just go to auxiliary and it works seamless. I mean, it's really, really nice. And there's a compartment foam lined for, you know, trying to find a way to put something in there and not damage it. They've thought it through well, and just the way it plays through the stereo system is great. Works just like everything else when you go to auxiliary. Let's go use that suspension on a rough road. £800 motorcycle, uneven pavement, grooved, everything else. Do you believe me? The bike works. The suspension is flawless through the bumps. Steering is flawless through uneven stuff. Beautiful. You could really piss a lot of sport bikes off with this bike. Now, I've mentioned or shown the sport bike agility of this bike. It might throw you off, but the seating, the comfort, the layout of this bike is full-on touring bike comfort. The pegs are pretty low, not a knee bend. Bars are wide, come back to you. Very, very nice. The control, wonderful. There's no flex. You never feel flex in the front end. You never feel flex in the bars like on some of the older touring bikes. I mean, it's just solid and precise. The seats are huge. I spent, I think, like 15 hours the first day in this seat, and it started to get to me towards the end of the day. The back seat is just large. The professional, as I call a passenger we put on it, complained that it's too slippery. A shorter rider complained that the front seat is too slippery because there is not grip in this beautiful looking seat cover. And a couple things for the passenger. Said, you know, it wasn't grippy, they slid forward, and to make matters worse, the backrest on the tail trunk leans back. And if you put somebody on one of these and tell them to lean back against it, you can see it for yourself. So that is not how it should be. It should be virtually straight up, and they should be able to stay in their seating position instead of sliding around. So as beautiful as the seat is, I mean, you see the armrests that fold down and everything else in this bike, and you just want to ride on it. You just think it's fantastic. Well, that portion hasn't proven to work fantastic. The armrests, they're big, they're wide, they're beautiful, but they should be easily removable, and I don't see that happening. When I've been on the back, they're also quite wide, maybe wider than they need to be as well. So, not getting the same marks as how it looks, you know, to visually look at. Driver's seat depends on who it is and their height and everything. I find it really good. I fold my back in. You know, there's that touring bike slump. Well, that's how I ride, and the person that slid forward, that's not how he rides. There is a touring bike slump. You slump, and when you do that, your lower back hits the rise in the driver's seat, and it's a nice place to be. In addition to that, and you guys who have spent days and days or hours and hours on the road, you know this. When you've been on the road that long, you find ways to sit, stretch, reach, and so forth. You know, you can hit the cruise control, come up over here, come up here, come up here. You move around, sit sideways. This bike has a million ways to sit, which makes those long days really good in the seat. This bike's also equipped with something I love. Let's get to the headlight. Before we get there, though, we're going to talk about the LED driving lamps. They hit the cars in front of you below the eye level so they don't bother anybody unless you turn, then it goes up higher. I leave them on all the time because I am daytime and nighttime so much more visible with these lights on. They're very, very white, and they light up the road. They fill in the rest of the road from the main headlight. I just never turn them off. I like them at night. I like them in the day. I feel a lot safer with them on. I see a passing lane. We'll do a little braking here. Looking for the anti-lock to kick in. Didn't even kick in. Brakes are fabulous. Love them. Here's our LED for the driving lamps to be on. Switch is right here where my left thumb is. Now let's get to the headlight. The low beam is a very white light. It actually matches the LEDs. The high beam goes way out there, and it's more of a brownish tint to it. You can tell when it's on. What high and low beam have, not sure how it works between high and low beam, but it has the adaptive headlight that I did the first video of at the press intro for this bike. That headlight arrangement is so good. This is the best lighting I've ever had on a motorcycle, period, bar none, no comparison. Go home, nothing to talk about. The adaptive headlight, which will go around corners for you to a fair degree and light up where you're going, doesn't happen on any other motorcycle. And I've been riding a lot at night, might do a night piece. It changes motorcycling, and it's as if every bike sold should have this. Now, problem comes into cost, size, and everything else, so there are limitations, and maybe those will get better over the years, but every single motorcycle should have this type of adaptive headlight. And kudos to BMW, this headlight changes riding at night. It doesn't rev like a touring bike. Now don't get me wrong, you want to go cruise slowly. Well, let's just take in this view. You want to go cruise slowly, bike will do it all day long. This engine is so smooth. You don't notice any vibration yet. If you think about it, yeah, there's a bit of vibration. It just all feels right. There's nothing that tingles. There's nothing that sets you off one way or the other. It just feels right, and you don't notice it. Extremely smooth. You could just go all day. Brrr. You don't have to ride it like a sport bike. The suspension is the best you're going to find at this time. It's amazing. The handling, steering, the best you're going to find at this time and day. So you want to go slow and have the best brakes, best everything around you to be so confident in how it's all delivered. Here's the bike for you. Anti-lock, well, you know, BMW has been the best in the business. I'm not saying they are now, but you know you have as good as anything out there when you have the anti-locks from BMW. Rain mode, yeah, you want it on a bike like this, and it would be awesome to have if you get caught in the rain. Now here's a remarkable thing. Fuel mileage on this bike. BMW spent a lot of time focusing on fuel mileage out of this package, and they've succeeded. The instant fuel mileage for the different trip meters, you know, it's always on 43, 44, 42, usually 43 though. It says if you go 57 miles an hour continuously, you will get 52 miles to the gallon, and I do believe it, because with spirited riding, I'm getting in the 43s, which is astounding for a bike of this size, power, weight, all of the above. It rocks on fuel mileage. I don't have the exact capacity, I don't know the exact range, but I'll tell you this, and not riding slow, you can go 250 miles before you hit reserve, and I bet reserve is at least a gallon, which is going to be another 40-ish miles, I'm guessing. I've gone like 20 after the yellow light, and if you're going slower, it's not going to hit till longer. So the range is fantastic, the fuel mileage is fantastic. They tell you premium, but it's doing okay on unleaded. The things you can do on this bike, well, you shouldn't be able to do them, but you can. Well, what I like least about it is at slow speeds, like around town, very slow speeds, there's a lot of shaft, drivetrain action, transmission action, there's clunkiness when you shift the gears, and it's all kind of astounding because, you know, it sounds like a big metric cruiser shifting. You can hear it clunk clunk. You can have play in the drive line, you know, a little jolting, or you can hear it. So we wish that wasn't there. We wish it was seamless and smooth. But the remarkable part is, once you speed up, once you start riding it at speeds, it's like a refined inline 4, say, sport bike. It's flawless. You don't detect any of it. The shifting is perfect. There's no drivetrain action going on. You know, you never feel a rise because it's a drivetrain, shaft drive. Just works flawless at that time. But for going around town and slow rides, you're going to hear it shifting and you're going to feel some clunkiness. So that's what I like least about it. What comes after that would be the windshield, which could be improved upon by replacing it. It's the side stuff that comes in that gets it doing funky things and noise. So I guess you got to think of this kind of as the sport bike of full-on, full luxury, fully outfitted touring bikes. But you don't have to ride it that way. But it is just such a blast to do. It's fun to downshift, hear that 6. Sometimes you get it just in a certain power range and accelerate out of a corner and it just shoots. It's fun. And you could pull up at any Pebble Beach hotel on one of the nicest looking touring bikes. So, you know, you could ride it like this all day long. You can put it in 6th and just lug it. It doesn't mind. It'll accelerate away. This bike is extremely confidence inspiring. The only place it's not is at very low speeds, 10 miles an hour and under. It's got a little bit of this, and if you get a little sideways, you can notice the weight, and you're gonna have to hold it up like any 800-pound motorcycle. So you have to have some skills, some experience to be riding this bike, and not afraid in the least of a heavy bike. And you know, when you're stopped and crawling, that's the only time you're going to know you're on a bike of this weight. The steering, once again, is just phenomenal. It is so precise. One hand, two hand. It's just so flippin' good. There's no effort. Brakes, one finger. Hold it through the corner like this. Accelerate. So maybe it's the one-handed sport bike, touring bike. Brakes, awesome. Anti-lock doesn't kick in too early, take you out of, your ability to ride. It's just really right on. There's so many things they got so perfectly right with this bike. That's why it's so inspiring and fun to ride.
So did I spend 24 hours aboard the GTL? Yes, I did. 2 mill stops and stopping to work with camera gear and set up cameras. But yeah, 24 hours straight. And you know what? The bike never skipped a single beat. Now, I've done this with other bikes over the years, and sometimes you find that a bike, it doesn't want to start normal, or it hangs up here, or it does this, or it does that. Or you push it hard, which I did, and the brakes get hot and they start to fade. No, they didn't. I got the bike smelling hot, real hot, when I stopped to do some camera work. And you know what? I got back on the bike and it was absolutely the same. Not a change whatsoever. The bike never changed through all of this testing. Actually, I really miss this bike. I like it that much. And I don't say these things very often. So you've got a sport bike that does, well, you don't have a sport bike. You have a grand luxury touring bike that can almost fill the shoes of a sport bike. In other words, I could piss off a lot of sport bikes on this 800-pound touring bike. Yeah.